Blessings, beloveds. Welcome back. Anastasia, Cosmic Astrologer, with you guys today and wanting to talk about the new moon in Sagittarius for you guys and just run through some of the themes that I'm identifying through my own understanding and intuition and so forth. And I will be drawing on some esoteric astrology as well, which I think just gives a very different level of understanding of the cosmic energies. Okay, so the new moon, which occurs on the 7th of December, which is just in a few days' time, is at 15 degrees of Sagittarius. So that's the first thing. Now, this new moon is a normal new moon in that it's not an eclipse of any sort. This new moon in Sagittarius is loaded with a number of different energies, actually. And whilst it is loaded with potential because of the nature of the energy of Sagittarius and Jupiter being in Sagittarius now as well for the next 12 months, it carries that energy with it as well. So it has a lot of potential for aspirations and visions. Remember, Sagittarius being the archer, the arrows shooting out is about our aspirations and visions and dreams and goals and shooting out, expanding on perhaps what we've been working on. That could be internally, that could be externally as well, just with our goals and our desires to want to expand further in a particular area of life. But naturally, the new moon obviously is always representing a new energy being born. So new opportunities because it's Sag, and just a new cycle beginning essentially. And, you know, with every new moon, because we have one every month, you know, so it's just a question of how tuned in we are with these cosmic forces, these cosmic energies, because the more we are receptive and in tune, the more we can actually connect with the energies spiritually, on an esoteric level, and even just on a practical, mundane level as well. So it's always about assessing, well, in this case, where is 15 degrees of Sagittarius in your birth chart, because that is the area of your life that this new moon is born, that this new moon lands. So it is that area of life for you that will be prominent, or where you can set new intentions and where you can pretty much expand some of your aspirations and dreams. That's the positive component really of this new moon in Sag. It's filled with a lot of hope and optimism, you know, and a lot of faith, because Sagittarius is the sign of faith. So it's the faith in oneself, faith in life, faith in the divine, and faith in just everything around you, really. But more importantly, faith in the divine and faith in your own self, because the lack of faith in our own self is usually the result of the inability to achieve certain things or to progress through certain things and to grow and expand. Sagittarius is the energy that gives us that confidence to reach, you know, for our goals, to reach for that more expansive experience and adventure. That's the nature of Sagittarius. Now, what I wanted to kind of bring into this is a few different things. Now, where shall I begin? Because I have a few things to say. So, okay, well, perhaps I'll just throw in a little bit of esoteric understanding now, and I'll put up the chart in a moment for the energy of the actual new moon chart and what it shows, and we will just look at some of those some of the dynamics happening in that chart that will be carrying us forward really over the next month. Now, esoterically, Sagittarius is actually, well, traditionally, let me start here. Traditionally, Sagittarius is ruled by Jupiter, as most of you would be aware. And Jupiter has just recently gone into Sagittarius, which is his own sign. So, you know, there's incredible potential really available and accessible to all of us at the moment because of Jupiter in Sag. There's so much hope. There's so much belief. There's so much expansion that we can really get into if we really want to. But again, naturally, it's about assessing, well, where is Jupiter in Sagittarius in your chart? More than likely, it's going to be in the same house where this new moon lands in the next couple of days. So I would be paying attention to that particular house, because this new moon in Sagittarius is not only a new moon in Sag, but Jupiter is trailing behind it in Sagittarius. They're not together because Jupiter is, or rather the sun and the moon has moved quite a fair way from Jupiter in Sagittarius. So they're not conjunct, meaning they're not together. They are together, but they're not close enough to be considered what we call a conjunction. Nevertheless, the energy is still there. So really be paying attention to where Sagittarius is in your chart, because this is where you can really set some beautiful, positive, clear intentions with how you wish to plant seeds for this new moon, which is carrying that Jupiter energy, essentially. Now, in esoteric astrology, the sign Sagittarius is ruled by the earth. And that's going to sound very strange to a lot of you, and I can appreciate that, because if you have not studied esoteric astrology, it wouldn't make any sense. However, just very briefly, if you can imagine Sagittarius is a sign, as I've already said, that you know, has these visions, these very expansive visions, those shooting those arrows with a lot of energy and a lot of hope and a lot of optimism and a lot of faith, a lot of excitement. Not much holding Sag back, really. Sag is, you know, Sagittarius is really one of the signs that truly loves freedom. Now, when Sag is operating at a more, perhaps what you could say, a lower sort of ego level, it can lose its ability to be grounded, you know, because it starts shooting all these arrows everywhere, and there's just arrows flying off in every direction, and there's nothing really anchoring those arrows. There's nothing grounding those visions, those aspirations. So the energy can just basically go all over the place, all right? And that's a frequent quality of mutable signs anyway, and Sagittarius is a mutable sign. So the Earth actually ruling Sagittarius in esoteric astrology is just simply showing us that the all-powerful Sag expansive energy really benefits by the Earth ruling it, because it helps it anchor its aspirations and its visions, and therefore enables it to actualize, you know, these visions, these aspirations, these goals, and so forth. So that's, in short, in very, very short, that's the nature of the Earth ruling Sagittarius. It keeps it anchored and grounded and able to actualize. So, you know, I think it's important to understand both, you know, Jupiter being the exoteric ruler of Sagittarius and the Earth being the esoteric ruler of Sagittarius. So it holds that energy that this new moon does. Now, some other things. Okay, so actually what I will go into next is just some more delineation of the new moon in relation to the aspects that this new moon has. So I'll just share my screen for you guys, and have a visual. Okay, so this chart is drawn for Melbourne, the location of Melbourne, Australia, and the time is 5:41 p.m. when this new moon is practically exact. It's just a few minutes off. Obviously, depending on where you are in the world, you might experience this new moon on the 6th or on the 7th, so you need to adjust that according to your location. Okay, so you can see here, and never mind about the house location of things, because this chart is specifically drawn for Melbourne, Australia, and if you are in Europe or in the States or in Africa or in China or wherever, it's not going to be applicable, okay? So forget about the location of everything and just pay attention to a couple of things that I'm going to point to. So on this day, we have some interesting things going on, and a couple of days later, which I will get into in a moment, relating to Mercury and Chiron. Before I go there, I just want to point out that the most striking aspect, the most striking feature of this new moon, apart from Jupiter trailing behind it in Sagittarius, and as I said, it's not close enough to be a conjunction, but the energy is, it's all there held together, which is why it has enormous potential. However, if you look over here to Mars and Neptune, Mars and Neptune are in the sign of Pisces, and they are exactly conjunct at the moment. That within itself is an entire video. But this Mars-Neptune is forming a very tight square to this new moon. So this new moon is carrying with it the inherent energies of what a square to the new moon means by Mars and Neptune. Now, this is not an easy configuration, so I'm not going to fluff it all up. I'm going to speak it as I understand it. However, I will give two different levels, and the one level will be a more lower level of expression and manifestation. When I use the terms lower, it is not a judgment, so please don't ever think that it is a judgment. It is merely a word to define when energy is operating at a lower personality level as opposed to a higher, more transcendent, esoteric, spiritual level, because that is a fact. These planetary energies have the ability to manifest in either of those streams, and that's really going to vary if you're talking about looking at an individual and how this energy is impacting you or any individual out there. Then it's about understanding, well, how are you operating? You know, are you dominated predominantly by the personality components, which are the lower sort of levels of these cosmic energies? Again, not a judgment, just a definition. Or are you more in tune, and are you on a spiritual path of awakening where you tap into these energies from a much higher frequency, a much higher dimension? So that's why I like to give both sort of levels of understanding, because it might be a bit of both in certain ways as well. And it usually is, really. Because I think if we are totally enlightened and we are vibrating from that, pure transcendent level, I don't think we'd actually be in our physical bodies. So the fact that we are means that we still have things to evolve through. Okay, so this Mars-Neptune conjunction square this new moon is a problem when we're going to the lower level of delineation, because it brings up matters of deception, people taking advantage of you, people ripping you off, people lying. Those sorts of themes come up very strongly just with the Mars-Neptune conjunction alone. But bring it into, squaring the sun and moon, the new moon, it adds a whole other level and layer. It's an energy where people can just take you for a ride, to be quite honest with you, because the fundamental lower level expression of Mars-Neptune energy is deceptive intentions. Someone doesn't have authentic intentions with their actions. And that's the Neptune blending with the Mars. That's frequently what shows up, even if you have that configuration in your own chart. That can be aspects of your own nature, or certainly aspects of relationships you draw into your life. So the other thing with the Mars-Neptune squaring this new moon, it can also impact health and energy levels and stamina and vitality, because the sun is vitality, you know, it's your life source. Mars is another level of that as well, because it's your drive. It's the, you know, the fuel in the tank, as is the sun. They're just slightly different. So Neptune being conjunct Mars and square the sun, it's impacting the vitality and the energy. Okay. So, you know, if you are doing things that are not conducive to good health, then, you know, this new moon, this aspect might play around with you in that way. So I think it's just something to be aware of. And if your energy levels do feel slightly lower than usual on this particular day, that's fine. Don't feel like you have to push and push and push and push through. Rather, just consider perhaps taking some time out and taking some rest if that is possible for you. See, the thing is with Neptune is completely rigorous about denying the ego desires, the ego selfish desires of Mars. So Mars has a very different agenda and intention to Neptune. So you bring the two together and Neptune's going to override Mars, essentially, as Neptune is going to override the sun. And essentially it weakens these ego forces which Mars and the sun represent. Neptune is the larger force in this picture. Neptune is the ultimate truth. It's the divine source to all things. But when it's operating at this lower personality level, it can be very, very tricky. It can bring a lot of confusion, disillusionment, disappointment, and dishonest actions as well. So this theme is very strong with this new moon, and I think it's important to address because it's there. Simply, it's just there. In fact, it's the. Let me just double check before I make this comment. Yeah, it's the closest aspect to this new moon, and it's a doozy. It's a full on aspect. I would not take it lightly. I would take it very seriously. So if you've got dealings on the day of the 6th or the 7th of December, where you might be making deals with people, I would try and avoid making deals on that particular day, it could be a situation where somebody is wanting to, how can I put this? It's really about just being very aware of other people's actions and intentions, because they are likely not to be what they appear, and that just may be you as well. So, it's there. It's there for everybody. It's just a matter of how people are vibrating, how people are operating. Personality level, spiritual level, a bit of both as well, as I said. Now on a much higher level, this aspect, if we are going to understand it from an esoteric spiritual level, then, it's the spiritual warrior sort of energy, if you like. It's using your energy and your drive and your passion and your willpower and whatever goals and aspirations and things you have, let it be connected to a larger sort of purpose rather than just your own selfish needs. This is a way to get the best out of a Mars-Neptune squaring the Sun-Moon. Because Neptune is always asking us to be selfless, to be of service of the divine. So, If we don't do that when Mars and Neptune are together, we generally will find ourselves in trouble. It's just the way it works. So the best way to get something out of this is to utilize this energy in a way where you can be of service to the divine in some kind of way. That can be so many different things. That can be working, giving some of your time in some kind of community, in some kind of spiritual group, in some kind of cause, whether it's, you could be an animal advocate, could be any number of different things. But the main thing that all you need to understand is that this energy is about being selfless, not selfish. The minute we try and use this energy in our own selfish way, just totally for ourselves, things turn to shit, to be quite honest. So just keep that in mind. That is the main feature that's carried through into this new moon. So despite the fact that the new moon is in Sag and Jupiter is in Sag, so it's, it's like a loaded gun with, just it's just full of this beautiful potential of fire and faith to go out and explore, and create more. But I think it's going to be important to keep in mind this aspect of the Mars-Neptune impacting this new moon. Very important. The other thing that I wanted to also touch on, by the way, just a couple of key phrases that I wrote down for this new moon being squared by Mars-Neptune. As I said, it can affect energy levels because Mars and the Sun are our vitality, stamina, strength, energy. This aspect can sometimes make people feel mentally discouraged as well. So just be aware of these sorts of themes that may or may not show up. Just depends on you and what's going on in your life and who you are. But these are possibilities, essentially. It's also very important to remain very sort of grounded, because this energy it's quite a high vibrational energy with Neptune there. Neptune being the ultimate source of truth, oneness. You can imagine how high that is. Our mind can't even begin to fathom what that really is. We try to. We get glimpses of it in certain experiences in life, sometimes in nature, sometimes in little children, sometimes in animals, and certainly in our dreams as well, in altered states of consciousness. That's where we get to really feel Neptune's energy in terms of this physical domain. So this aspect can also stimulate incredible inner idealism, which is fine, on the one hand, but it can also leave people feeling quite disillusioned or quite disappointed, because the ideals are just so far out there that the gap between reality and their ideals is so huge, and sometimes that can frequently result in, feeling really sort of let down and disappointed. So just keep that in mind as well. It's really important to keep yourself grounded. So setting realistic intentions is what I would say, because if we're going to think of the new moon as a point of enabling us to set some very clear intentions, which is always a fantastic thing to do with the new moon, well, the things I'm discussing are the things that you need to bring into these intentions and into your awareness. So it's about being very clear, very grounded and anchored, and not having a huge gap between reality and your ideals, because you will end up feeling disappointed. That's Neptune, when it's operating at a lower level, it's massive, massive disappointment. So it's important to remember that and to understand it as well. The other thing that's going on with this chart is Mercury is stationary direct. So tomorrow morning, very early in the morning, not tomorrow, I'm sorry, on the 8th of December, so one day later, very early on the 8th of December, Mercury moves direct. So yeah, we've just completed our final Mercury retrograde for the year, so that's done. Venus has completed her retrograde cycle in the signs of Scorpio and Libra. She's in Scorpio, moving forward. Not too happy in Scorpio because, you know, Scorpio is her sign of detriment. We have to be realistic about these things. But on the other hand, at a much higher level of the expression of Venus and Scorpio, it's really about getting into those darker shadow components of how we've been relating in our relationships and what we've had to, you know, work through there and confront essentially. And hopefully, you know, we've transformed some of these shadow components because the shadow is there in every single one of us. So Mercury is going to go direct. Venus is already direct. We've finished our retrograde cycles there. The other thing is that Chiron is going to go direct on the 10th of December, which is a really huge thing because Chiron will then proceed to complete his cycle in the sign of Pisces and begin his cycle in Aries in February of 2019. But you know, this Chiron in Pisces has been a really big deal collectively and definitely individually and personally in the experiences, or rather the experiences that people have shared with me with regards to just how important this Chiron in Pisces has been for them. And certainly in my own life, Chiron in Pisces has been the most painful. Yeah, it's been the most painful. So Chiron went into Pisces 2011. So, you know, we're looking at a 8-9 year cycle of Chiron being in Pisces. It's a very long time. And if you look at your life over the last 8-9 years and you look at the area of where Pisces is in your chart, I have no doubt whatsoever that you have had to work through some really, really, really deep soul truths and very deep spiritual beliefs, and that can certainly relate to people in your life as well. And for me, it does. It relates to certain members of my family, which is why I felt extreme emotion a minute ago, and I had to kind of, ground myself. So Chiron is completing. There's a massive completion taking place with Chiron in Pisces, and the shift, the completion's been taking place for a while now because Chiron already went into Aries and then went retrograde. So there was something incomplete about Chiron in Pisces. So have a look at, you know, where Chiron has been transiting in your chart, because there's something that's really at the end of its cycle. It's really it's absolute closure time with whatever that issue has been for you, and that could be a number of different issues, or it could just be one main theme or issue for you. You know, first of all, the sign of Pisces is the end of all things, you know. It's the completion, it's the end of the cycle. So Chiron going into Aries is going to be the birth of an entirely brand new cycle. So we're really, all of us and collectively, there's massive closure going on, all pertaining to what Chiron has been enabling us to heal. Not only enabling us to heal, but it's brought up our deepest wounds as well. And it's brought up things relating to, you know, rejection, fear of being rejected, fear of not being understood, fear of not being heard. So wherever Chiron is, you know, those are the central themes that come up. Fear of rejection, the need to heal whatever that is very, 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 very deeply. You know, think about it. Chiron's been in Pisces for 9 years almost. So that's a massive cycle of completion, which takes place just a couple of days after this new moon. So therefore, I think it's very, very significant. And what else? So I just wanted to do a quick mention for Vesta, who just entered the sign of Aquarius just a couple of days ago. So Vesta is up here. As you can see, she's at 2 degrees of Aquarius. And look, Vesta can sometimes be a little bit obscure in terms of what's going on wherever she's transiting in your chart. But the key to understanding what she's doing, if anything, first of all, usually it would be that if she's aspecting a personal planet in your chart especially, then Vesta's energy is going to be very close to your heart. So if you're an Aquarian, or if you've got Moon in Aquarius, or if you've got your Ascendant in Aquarius, or if you've got Mercury in Aquarius or Mars or Venus, Vesta's going to be traveling over those planets the next few weeks, and she will be giving you the opportunity, connecting you to that energy of connecting through your heart at a much more profound, deep level of your heart center energy, relating to your individuation path and process, because she's in the sign of Aquarius, and that is the sign of individuation, which is waking up, you know. So there's more waking up going on. There's more opportunity to tap into that if you're on the path and you are working on those levels. So I just wanted to give her a quick mention. I love the asteroid goddesses. Ceres is always a difficult one. Pallas Athene's really obscure. Juno is really obvious in what she brings up, and Vesta can be sometimes obvious but sometimes obscure, but very, 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 very important, because Vesta is about what you devote and dedicate your heart to. It's the flame in your heart. Very, very powerful goddess energy. And yeah, I think I want to leave it there. I just wanted to make a 10-minute video. I don't really know how long this is just yet, but it's probably longer than 10 minutes. So yeah, I think I'll leave it there. Hopefully this sheds some light for you guys in relation to the new moon in terms of my interpretation and feel for it. And I hope that it's useful. And I'll see you guys soon with another video. Thank you so much for your beautiful comments and questions, and keep them coming. And thank you to new subscribers, and thank you to all subscribers, and much love and blessings to you, and happy new moon, guys. Much love. Bye.